we're in an economic culture and climate right now where everybody needs not only a day job but a hustle. I see the hustle. You know what I'm saying? And I think that that's the largest threat. When you're in any environment where you can see how the hustle works and you're not part of the hustle, you don't want to be there. You know what I'm saying? When you're at the bottom of the pyramid and you know that the entire top of the pyramid is there only because you're at the bottom, you want to kind of get from the bottom. You know, and they understand on some intrinsic level that once everybody from the bottom leaves, you no longer have a pyramid. The reason why people who are in power is basically because they're trained to think that way. They're trained to think in the macro. They're trained to think big picture, you know, how this works with that and how you coordinate the two and all of that. And their main job description is to get you as the person doing the micro work to continue thinking in the micro. You know, and then when you take that into a larger social scale, the people who run our entire country who run the planet think in that term. You know, your bankers, your CEOs, these aren't people for the most part. I mean, maybe a handful out of thousands came up from their own boots, you know, pulled themselves up by the bootstraps and came up through the mail room all the way to be the CEO of the company. For the most part, these kids went to prep schools, boarding schools, all the way up to Ivy League universities, and then off into being a CEO of some corporation as their first gig right out of college. Like, that's how they work. So because they work that way, they're always trained to think in this larger scale, and they're trained that way, and they teach you and they bombard the rest of us to think in the now, into today, into what I'm doing from this day to the next day, while meanwhile they're making 5, 10,
and don't question the system,
and don't question it. Right, you're trained to be subservient. You know, and it's part of the schooling. You know what I'm saying? It starts from the schooling because the curriculum is based solely on churning out individuals who are going to be subservient to the state. And the media surrounding your education is there to program you to love your servitude and to reinforce the narrative. But then you have to remember, when you step back from it, you have to remember who's putting it all into play and how is it to their advantage and how is it to your disadvantage. And once it is that you realize that it's at your disadvantage is when you finally decide, I am no longer going to be part of the system. I mean, it is a wake-up call. It is not only a wake-up call to realize how you are a slave, in a sense, but a wake-up call as to how people are dominating based on your participation in a false narrative. That's really all it is. And until you wake up from the false narrative, you're going to continue to play this very willing role, you know, because as you grow up through the society, you grow attached to all the trinkets and the toys that they give you, and you become attached to it, and you become so beholden to them.
When your identity is wrapped up in society.
You know what I'm saying? It's, you know, it's the whole concept of the things you own end up owning you, because you're so caught up in the, not only the pursuit thereof of these items, but the attainment of them, and then you grow dissatisfied, and then they give you a new toy to play with, and it's this perpetual, you know, gerbil on the spinning wheel type of situation. And you know, it takes a strong person to realize that and to say, you know what, I no longer want to participate in it. We are conditioned to like, and in a sense love, our servitude. We are conditioned to love the oppression and call it something else. You know, it's something that I've had. Right. I mean, it's a discussion that I've had with my wife when we were debating whether or not we're going to move back from here, or, you know, stay in New York or move back to California. I said, we can't live in a prison and continue to decorate our prison to the point where we start thinking it's a palace. I said, you can't decorate your prison and try to call it a palace. It doesn't work. You're still in a prison. And just because you put paintings on the wall and you put a sexy lady on the bars to cover up the bars, and because you put your little cards here and there and little trinkets that you find in you know, in your day-to-day, because you decorate your prison with that, doesn't make it any less of a prison. You are still a prisoner. You know, and once you are reminded of that, you then begin the process of getting free. And I think on a larger scale, that's what you're seeing, is that people have realized they've been decorating the prison. And now they want to get free. This is why you're seeing Arab Springs, American Winters, or whatever they wanted to call it, American Autumns. That's why you're seeing these revolutions all over the world. You're seeing people protest this new Trayvon Martin situation. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody wants to join into it because it's part of the psyche now, where we know that there's something intrinsically wrong with the system that we are involved in, there's something intrinsically wrong with the way that we are living, and we no longer want to accept that. And we are looking for something else. What that something else is, we don't know yet. And everybody has their opinions, everybody has their ideas on what that should be, what the solution should be. And everybody's trying to jockey for position to get into that solution space, because then that's where the power lies. But right now, we're just on the cups of realizing we don't want to deal with the bullshit. And I think it's a very exciting time.
I'd like to help you in your struggle to be free.